Mandy Baker. I play as Mandy B on Full Tilt Poker, and I will be playing some 1-2 no limit cash game today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and post here because it's worth it. Instead of waiting until it comes all the way around, I'm far enough behind. It's worth it to post. This is a hand where if I knew much about this player, I would probably call here and see a flop. In fact, maybe I will anyway. I will anyway. This is a situation I could go either way. Since I don't know anything about the player at all, I could definitely fold. But there's also something to be said for seeing a flop in position. I could raise here. I don't know anything about this player, so I think I'm going to opt for the more conservative route and just call, see what develops. That's a good card. Now I have an open-ended straight draw as well. Might even semi-bluff here. I think I'm going to. Make it like about a pot size bet, so I'm going to make it 80. Now, if this is a good player and he has a hand like a ace king, ace queen, he's probably not going to get too involved with it. But he did, and now I'm in a difficult position. I think I'm going to bluff. Well, if I bluff, I have to bluff all in. And I don't know anything about him. I don't know if he's going to call off with an ace king, ace queen. Since he called me on the turn, he probably will. I think I'm just going to abandon it. Since he called me on the turn, he's probably not going to fold the ace king or ace queen now. So I'm just going to give up. Okay. Yeah, it would have been pretty bad for him to call on the turn and then fold there on the river. So that's why I didn't try that bluff. So I decided I could have just called. Some of the times I would have. I was feeling a bit frisky, so I decided to try to push him off the hands like the ace king, ace queen. A lot of times maybe I wouldn't make that play when I don't know anything about the opponent. Sometimes I would. The benefits of semi-bluffing here are that I could get him to fold the hand like the ace king, ace queen. Another benefit is then if I hit my card, you know, on the river, then I'll be winning a bigger pot. You could definitely make an argument for just calling, and some of the times I would do that. Might have been better in this situation since I didn't know anything about this guy and I don't know what he's capable of folding and what he's not capable of folding. Now that I know that he'll call off with one pair, that's not something I'm going to try again against this player. And I also am now going to be aware that everyone on this table saw this hand, and I'm going to be more likely to get paid off in the future. So that's an argument for making the semi-bluff raise, is that if I just sat down at the table, now I'm more likely to get paid off in a hand in the future since this got shown down. And since most of the time in cash games, excuse me, I kind of just wait to make a hand and get paid off. So I don't actually do a whole lot of semi-bluffing. So if I do get caught doing that early on, that's almost beneficial to me since in reality I don't do that very often. So now I'm going to be more likely to get paid off. So in general, I don't like defending my big blind, but obviously this is a good hand that if someone raised, oh, I got to walk. Well, if someone had raised, I'd probably just flat call. I don't think, unless it came from late position, I wouldn't re-raise. It's kind of similar to the ace-queen. So this guy is short stacked and he raised in late position. I could make an argument for re-raising. But I'm not going to because I think it's a mistake to play big pots out of position, even with a good hand, even when I almost certainly have a better hand than this guy who raised in late position. I'd still rather just keep the pot smaller when I'm out of position. And I miss the flop. I do have the ace of clubs, but it's not anything I'm going to chase after. I might even have the best hand, but it's not worth it to get involved. Basically, in cash games, like I said before, I like to kind of sit back and wait for a big hand and then get paid off. That's you can't really go wrong by just playing tight at a full 9-handed cash game. If you just play tight and then wait to get paid off big on your big hands, you can't really go wrong with that strategy. This is exactly the hand that I want to have when I play at a cash game. I want to limp in, and then ideally what I want is someone behind me to have aces or kings and raise, and then I'd call the raise and have the flop come something like 10-7 deuce and get their whole stack. This is a large opening raise. I'm still going to call it. I have maybe about 15 times that, so I'm definitely still going to call it. He could have a lot. He could have a wide range and he's just trying to pick up all these limps, or he might have a real hand. He is on the button, so I think it makes it more likely that he's just trying to pick up these limps. Not going to really get involved unless I flop a set here. I mean, maybe if the flop comes something like, you know, like a 6-5-4 or a 8-6-4, 8-6-5, something like that, I'd play it, but otherwise I'm pretty much just looking to flop a set, and if I don't, then I'm just going to check fold. Really not concerned at all with what hands he has since I missed. This Zeus character could have a lot of hands here. I mean, without knowing anything about him, it's hard to say much. You know, at these stakes, there's people who want to see every flop and will play, you know. You just have to pay attention because there are certain people that will always play suited cards, and there's other people, you know, you notice that might always play any ace. So you just have to pay attention and notice who plays what types of hands before you can really kind of narrow down, you know, the hand that a person has. There is one thing I know kind of similar. If, say, you raise pre-flop and someone calls and then they wait to check to you, like they don't check instantly. If they wait a little bit and then check, that's usually weakness. Not always, definitely not always. If someone checks immediately, that usually means really strong or really weak, and that's a fairly reliable tell. The immediate check is usually one of those two things, because if they have like an in-between hand, usually they'll take a second or two to think if they want to lead out or what they want to do. But usually if people completely miss or hit the flop really hard, then they'll usually check fairly fast. Usually a quick check doesn't mean medium strength. It's usually one end or the other. Okay, I probably have the best hand here, but I don't want to check raise and make a big pot when a lot of scary cards come for me. So I'm just going to check call. That's not a good card. I mean, it's not the worst, because if this guy had an ace, he probably would have raised pre-flop. But the king 10 just got there. And I'm just going to give it up at this point. I mean, it's possible that he's bluffing, but it'd be pretty thin for me to call here and then, you know, check call again on the river. A lot of people will take one stab at a pot, but it's not that often that someone's going to take two stabs at it. So just don't want to get too involved there with third pair. No reason to. Just let it go and wait for a better spot. Okay, I have aces. First of all, when you get aces, don't get excited. Just whenever you're playing, you should try to stay as on an even keel emotionally and not get too upset when you lose pots and not get upset when you get a walk with aces. It's just part of the game. I'm definitely going to play the hand if there's no raise. Might get complicated if one of the late position player's raises. I don't know what I'm going to do if one of them raises. I could limp in here. Some of the times I would, but I'm going to go ahead and put in a raise. If I'm raising out the small blind, I usually make it a little bit bigger because I'm going to be playing the hand out of position, so I'd kind of rather just win it pre-flop. And if I make such a small raise, you know, if I made it 6, that'd only be another $4 to this player, and just too easy for them to call with a lot of hands. And then if I know they're calling with a lot of hands because my raise isn't that big, then it doesn't really help me define their hand very much. So if I raise with a small blind, I'm usually going to make it a little bit bigger. Or if people limp in and I'm raising the big blind, I'm also going to make it a little bit bigger, just to discourage the action a little bit if I'm going to be playing out of position. What I don't like is that both this player and this player don't have deep stacks, so that's not good. I'm definitely going to call this raise, try to flop a set, see if I click the button at the right time. Come on, 4. Nope. Oh, I just gave a big tell. I instantly checked, which is a tell that, you know, like I said before, either extreme strength or extreme weakness. It's hard to not do, even though I know, you know, I know I shouldn't, but it's even hard to control when you know it. So now anyone with an ace will have a straight. Definitely not putting any more money in the spot unless an ace came on the river or something, then we'd all chop it. So I don't know why this guy's betting the river when he didn't bet the turn. That's kind of interesting. Unless he did 9, now he's making a value bet. I mean, I'm not calling no matter what, but it's interesting there. I'd be interested to see what he has. My guess is a 9. Hands that I wouldn't even complete with are just the really junky hands, the hands like the 10 deuce and, you know, jack 4, you know, those type of hands. It's not even worth it to complete, because you're going to be playing the hand out of position and it's a bad hand and you're just going to get yourself into trouble more often than not. In cash games, it's really important to play position. I guess that's important in any form of poker, but the stacks are so deep in cash games that it's not like in a tournament where you might get all the money on the flop. In cash games, you're going to have more difficult decisions on the turn and the river because the stacks are so deep. So if you're out of position, it's much more of a disadvantage when the stacks are deep. Because if they're not as deep, like in a tournament, maybe you'll get all the money in on the flop, and then therefore there's no positional advantage once you get all the money in. But in a cash game, the stacks are so deep that it's rare that you'll get all the money in on the flop. Therefore, you'll be making more decisions on the turn and the river, and the more streets you're playing, the more your position is going to benefit you. So it's really, really important to not be playing marginal hands in early position, or you know, you don't want to be like defending your big blinds and stuff. You're just leaking money away if you do that. I like saying over the gun because it is faster than saying under the gun +1. Plus, you know, it makes sense. Over the gun, under the gun. It also helps if I'm taking notes. I can abbreviate just OTG instead of UTG +1. It's easier for the note taking. Okay. If no one had limped in an early position but people limped in late position, I'd probably raise this hand. And certainly if I was playing at a 6 max table, I would raise it. I could make an argument for raising it here. And some of the times I would. But right now, I'm not going to. There's a lot of text. I'm going to go ahead and lead out for a full pot size bet. This is a hand I could play it a lot of different ways. I could have raised to begin with, or I could just check call for pot control. The problem with leading out there is that if I get called, there's a lot of cards that could come that are going to be bad cards. You know, certainly any diamond, you know, a 6, a 10, a 8, a king, all bad cards. So I could have check called either way. I also could have raised pre-flop, but like I was saying before, it's better to not be playing big pots out of position. So that's why I didn't raise. Also, Zeus had limp re-raised earlier, so if I'd raised pre-flop, you know, I'm taking the chance that he had limped with a big hand and is now going to re-raise me. Nine-handed is more about just sitting back, waiting for a big hand, and then getting paid off. And you can see more flops, you know, like, you know, there's so many raises and re-raises pre-flop at the 6 max. It seems like it's not as easy to see a flop. I'm still just going to limp in. I mean, if this was like a tournament situation, I would definitely, you know, raise or fold. But in a cash game, I'd rather just limp in. If someone has a big hand behind me, I don't want to raise and have them re-raise and then not be getting the right price to try to hit a set. And also, I want to let people in so that if I do hit my set, there'll be someone that can maybe pay me off. Well, this person might have a 7. We might just have a 4. I think I'm going to go ahead and call. Not really going to get much more involved unless I happen to spike a 6, which is unlikely. At this point, I'm probably either ahead of a 4 or behind the 7, and if this person bets out again, I'll just go away. I could make a bet at this point. I think I will. I'm going to make a fairly small bet. I don't have to make a big bet because if this person has a 7, they're probably not going to fold. And if they have a 4, they probably will fold. So a big bet wouldn't accomplish much. Now I'm just checking. There's no reason to bet now. Since they called on the turn, I figure she probably has a 7. I mean, I could try bluffing, but I have showdown value. You know, if she has a 4, I can win with the showdown. So. I mean, most likely I was putting her on the 7 right there, and I could have tried bluffing, but when I have some showdown value, you know, maybe if I had nothing and I couldn't win on a showdown, maybe I'd try to represent, you know, it's kind of hard. I mean, it's hard to really represent much there. If I didn't have anything, like say I had like a 5-6 and I missed a straight draw, maybe I'd try to bluff again, but since, you know, I could win, possibly with the 6s there, wasn't going to try to bluff. Showdown, by showdown value, I mean that I could possibly win by showing the hand down. If she had just called me with a 4, then I have the best hands and I can win with my 6s. If I had nothing, if I had missed the draw, like say I had a 5-6 and I missed a draw, then I wouldn't have any showdown value. I couldn't win by showing the hand down. So if I wanted to win the pot, I'd have to bluff. So overall, I think I lost a little bit for the day. Small losses are fine. There'll be a lot of small losses. You just have to avoid the big losses. Normally when I play cash games, I usually either lose a small amount or I win a large amount. So the times that I win a large amount make up for the times that I lose a small amount. And when you're playing the 9 max, you can pretty much just play tight, and you don't even really have to ever get out of line. Like the play I made with that 8-10 suited, you can be a successful cash game player without ever making any big semi-bluffs. Obviously, you should mix up your play and make those plays sometimes, but you can definitely just sit back and wait to get paid off at these 9 max tables. And you won't ever lose too much by playing too tight in a situation like this. If you want to gamble it up and be making a lot of semi-bluffs, you can do that too, but there's nothing wrong with playing tight and just waiting to flop big hands and get paid off.